if you believe this is orchestrated and you react to that emotionally, those who are not plugged into that matrix know your behavior. They know what you're going to do. And so if they have a want, a desire for the world here that they, from the matrix, from outside the matrix, are creating, which is what most protesters believe, then they know if you respond inside your matrix identity, if you respond inside there like that as the identity of who the system told you are, they know what you're going to do. They know how many will protest, how many will post online, and so they know the outcome, because it's their story, it's their matrix, whether you are conscious of it or not. This reaction emotionally to this is not coming from your sovereign state outside. It's coming from a matrix given to you by another sovereign human being. And so if everybody here is still focusing on the problem, which is what I was doing, I was saying, look at the problem over here, and you guys will be looking at it, there's no solution. Because the solution would be to take this army of people and to say, do you see these guys here who are rooted outside of this narrative, outside of this matrix that you believe are orchestrating world events to steer humanity? They are rooted in a powerful place because they're in their sovereign identity. In that sovereign identity, you can receive the light of silence. You can receive the presence of God. And God can direct you from there. Spirit can show you what to do. In that space, you will be shown where you can plant trees you won't sit under the shade of. In here reacting, you won't. And here's the thing, our system is a culmination of hundreds of years of the lower resonance of human behavior, be it influenced by other dimensions of spiritual realms we can't see negatively and positively or not. It's still human behavior. And so if you want to change that, trying to change it overnight is highly unlikely. But planting trees you won't sit under the shade of, eventually, if enough people disconnect from this chaos and plant those trees with the guidance, the mystic guidance found in the light of silence, which is spirit, then they will cast shadows with those trees they won't sit under the shade of, but those shadows will eventually drown out the existing matrix that we live in. Hey beautiful family. So naturally, a lot of you were asking where my last video went. And also, I feel this gives me an opportunity to answer a question that a lot of you have been asking. And actually, some of you have been making a statement which I don't agree with, which is, why aren't you doing something about the planetary situation with the pandemic? Why are you doing nothing? And this is the statement made against me. So, if you didn't see the video, I was basically saying that we have narratives in the world and they influence human behavior and adapt and mold the way we behave collectively, often forever. And what I said was that these events come naturally and surprise us and people react to them, or sometimes other humans will say they are here, have prior knowledge to this coming. Maybe they've declared or decided to go to war. They know this is coming. And so if persons believe in the pandemic situation that this is in part an orchestrated narrative to steer humanity, and it was orchestrated by these persons, and they react to it, this means that these persons are inside the matrix and they are not, and so by reacting to it, you are totally predictable. These persons know you're going to do that because they wrote the narrative and they know the outcomes. If they are resourceful enough and clever enough to do this, then they will know the outcome of human behavior and reacting to it. And what I was saying is these persons do things here to adapt human behavior to suit their agendas. Now this is no secret. Society is like that. Technology, substances, government, it's all about altering human behavior into something less primitive initially, and now it's often into a different realm. And this is what I made the video about. Now, I took that video down after an evening of yoga and meditation. And the reason I did that is because if you are looking at this pandemic and you want to do something about it, I believe that this video might help you. If you are anxious about what's going on, as in scared of the virus, or you are scared about the loss of human liberty, I think this might help you. So I think I might have something to contribute. So just try and keep emotions in check and hear me out if you can, as best you can. I don't feel that me doing that helped. Now, there are two things that I'm trying to potentially do there. And that video undoubtedly came from my ego. I'm either virtue signaling, or I am allowing persons who have the same worldview as me to find a community to come together and feel less alone, but at the same time focusing on the problem, not the solution. Or I'm trying to wake people up with my words. Now, people can't be woken up by other people's words. Awakening can only come organically from within, and that's only found by dwelling in inner stillness, a place I'm calling a lot lately the light of silence. I had a mystic experience in meditation with this term, the light of silence, and since then I've been calling this state, this presence with God, the light of silence. So the only way you can have an awakening, a true awakening for people, is not to tell them, it's to get them to transform in the light of silence, which is where we awaken and transform, and see it for themselves. So that side of it doesn't work, in my view, in my experience. This other side, everybody is focusing on the problems. They will be together, at least in a community, but still focusing on the problem. That would be you guys who are watching the video with me and seeing it and saying, yeah, I agree. But how does that help? Because realistically, the solution to it is not there. If you look a year ago, many people were focusing on the problem. They were focusing on mandatory vaccine coming in, etc. And nothing really has changed on the outcome of that. And I believe the reason being is because when you focus on the problem, if you believe this is orchestrated and you react to that emotionally, those who are not plugged into that matrix know your behavior. They know what you're going to do. And so if they have a desire for the world here that they, from outside the matrix, are creating, which is what most protesters believe, then they know if you respond inside your matrix identity, if you respond inside there like that as the identity of who the system told you are, they know what you're going to do. They know how many will protest, how many will post online, and so they know the outcome, because it's their story, it's their matrix, whether you are conscious of it or not. This reaction emotionally to this is not coming from your sovereign state outside. It's coming from a matrix given to you by another sovereign human being. And so if everybody here is still focusing on the problem, which is what I was doing, I was saying, look at the problem over here, and you guys will be looking at it, there's no solution. Because the solution would be to take this army of people and to say, do you see these guys here who are rooted outside of this narrative, outside of this matrix that you believe are orchestrating world events to steer humanity? They are rooted in a powerful place because they're in their sovereign identity. In that sovereign identity, you can receive the light of silence. You can receive the presence of God. And God can direct you from there. Spirit can show you what to do. In that space, you will be shown where you can plant trees you won't sit under the shade of. In here reacting, you won't. And here's the thing, our system is a culmination of hundreds of years of the lower resonance of human behavior, be it influenced by other dimensions of spiritual realms we can't see negatively and positively or not. It's still human behavior. And so if you want to change that, trying to change it overnight is highly unlikely. But planting trees you won't sit under the shade of, eventually, if enough people disconnect from this chaos and plant those trees with the guidance, the mystic guidance found in the light of silence, which is spirit, then they will cast shadows with those trees they won't sit under the shade of, but those shadows will eventually drown out the existing matrix that we live in. And so the solution to the problem we face is that we need to enter the light of silence. Now, there are persons who have control over what's going on in society, and they are not really in that position. They just have immense power within the matrix itself, and they are steering things. And this means they don't come from heart resonance. And those of us coming from heart resonance can see injustice, and we want something to happen. But if you stay in here, what you're doing is you're saying, I want justice, but justice is a concept you can't find. It's an illusion. You cannot find it. Transformation comes from love and compassion, and you can't generate that inside that matrix identity. You can only do it by disconnecting and getting into that light of silence. And that light of silence is this really deep inner peace. It's beautiful, it's wonderful, and it changes so much about who we are. I took the video down for that reason, and I don't speak on the pandemic for the same reason, because I feel I'm doing my part. Now let me show you something. Plant trees you won't sit under the shade of is the way. Hundreds of years ago, people felt exactly as you feel today about Rome and its census. They felt that it was the end of all things and that it couldn't possibly be, it was irreversible damage to humanity. But it also provided us with sanitation and roads. During this 90 years ago, World War II was happening. People were anxious, they were terrified, they were angry. Humans are playing the same game inside this chaotic matrix, and this matrix is manifest from the inner chaos of humans trying to create municipalities to protect them and to provide for them. When I went to East Africa, I turned up and there was no municipalities where I was, and I had to build municipalities from scratch. So I have a different perception to most Europeans. Most Europeans are unconscious of what municipalities have done for them. They have made them who they are. They have given them their ability to have awareness over and views on the world that they can't even comprehend happened because they had running water and a way to flush the toilet. They don't grasp how hard it is to deal with these issues, how much time it takes if you don't have municipalities. And so the journey of municipalities was very much needed, but then the management of municipalities is human, and the power that gives a human can corrupt them. And so right now, what I see is that if we try to solve the problem from inside the matrix, which is what that video was doing, and what discussing this over and over and focusing on the problem does, it joins this chaotic manifestational matrix that we've got. If you take out these world leaders, which many people want to do, someone from here has to replace them, and the same thing will repeat, because they're not conscious of their shadow, because they say they're evil instead of saying we humans are evil, and unfortunately they've been put in a position where it's expressed. So we can't do it that way, because if you change it, what do you change it with? It doesn't work. And so for me, I have been fighting against this problem, because I know that going to the light of silence, which is what all my spiritual videos have ever said, go there, pointing, saying go there. Even these texts that saturate society, like the Bible, says the same thing, just in a coded sense, or quite literally, as Jesus tells you to do as well, to have the presence of truth. I feel that my approach is a more productive approach. Now, I'm not saying that any other approach is wrong. Which tree is in the best position in a forest? Which planet is in the best position in the cosmos? You can't answer that. But what I can say for me in my individual journey is that I was sick of the system too, and I was leery and shouting about it online and constantly focusing on the central banks, etc. And it was only when I went into the light of silence that I got mystic guidance that said to me, come here and do this. And I wound up helping the very most forgotten parts of human society. Now, what happened in the light of silence was I entered heart resonance, I entered compassion. And when I went to help these children, I wasn't actually, at first, I thought I was cleaning up the mess of other people. I was cleaning up the mess of the government and the elitists and the cabals and the central banks. But I realized over time I was cleaning up the mess of my species. My species were not heart resonating, and so they'd forgotten children. And it's not the billionaire, the millionaire, it's all of us. We forgot them. These children are labouring all day to eat maize and palm fat and greens sometimes, to wake up and do it again. And they need $4, $3, $4 a week just to get them out into school. They need a little bit more than that, like $6 a week to get them into school with a uniform and medical care. I mean, guys, we know how frivolous we are with $4 to $6. It's us, it's our human nature, we're forgetting each other. And so in the light of silence, I found a new version of myself. My compassion came. And I transformed my corner of the world where Spirit asked me to go. Not only that, but the way the system is very frustrating, because it seems that it can't change itself because everyone's in the chaos of that matrix. A year ago, was not building East Africa's largest off-the-grid village with the team. A year later, we are about to build it. Had I been focused on the problems of the chaotic matrix, this new solution would not have been born. Now, I don't know what this means for humanity, that on the largest continent in the world, with the most agricultural land, who are tired of the Western economic system and its bully boy tactics, that I am now, with this wonderful team that's been assembled around us and the support of people around the world who are in heart resonance, we are building East Africa's largest off-the-grid village that is going to house the most forgotten, vulnerable members of our human community. I don't know what that shade will do from the tree that we are planting. I don't know 100 years from now what impact that has, but I see the potential shoots that can grow off that. And it makes me very, very happy. And I trust God that this is part of the plan. Because people coming from inside the matrix are not coming from heart resonance. People who leave it and get into the light of silence come from heart resonance. From there you are guided by that higher vibration of God. And that higher vibration of God and Spirit will lead us to a better world, is my view. Because it's led me to build a better world around me. Now, last year, in August, I was in the light of silence and meditation. I got an image to draw this community. Months later, 2 nuns came who were in the light of silence. They petitioned the church, and the church awarded us a huge piece of land. Other persons have come to us who entered the light of silence, actually many of them using journeys, using psychedelics, using ayahuasca, kambo, things like this. And they are now together. They didn't know each other somehow, but in that space of silence, transmuting the matrix into the sovereign identity that is rooted in a place beyond here, they are now helping us, and we are going to start building stage 1 of that village in the next 2 months. This wasn't happening 1 year ago. If I had avoided the light of silence, it wouldn't be happening now. If those persons had, it wouldn't be happening now. If I just kept focusing on the problem and shouting online, feeling like I'm changing something, this wouldn't have manifest. And it's not to say people saying stuff online are doing anything wrong. The light of silence might have led them to do that. But I call BS if everybody posting online says that's what the light of silence led them to do, because most reacted emotionally to this happening and never left and disconnected and sat still. Most never did that. Most never came to their sovereign identity. They just stayed in the erratic emotion and didn't know what to do. So post online and shout about it. They didn't know what to do. And you see it because it develops, those persons who do that, they develop a egoic identity, and they look down and they start calling people sheeple and saying, you can't see this and I can, so I'm elevated, is the expression they exude. And you see that happening. And it's because they didn't go to the light of silence and find that compassion washing out from there. And so also, a year ago, I wasn't building an app, and this app will connect social media influencers with persons in crisis that our society and species have forgotten, like the children I work with, the most ostracized and forgotten children in the world. I sat in the light of silence, and I came out and I said to Fritzy, I have to get other content creators to use their channels to speak sometimes once a week or once a month on behalf of persons in crisis. That's what I have to do. I saw this in the light of silence. The following day, the only app developer I know in the world contacted me and said, do you need me to build anything for your charity? I didn't have the money. The team he introduced me to in Portugal are now nearly finished building it. I didn't have the money to build that app. But in the light of silence on the other side of the world, a lady heard God tell her that she should send me $30,000 to do with what I please. And believe me, that's never happened. I've had people send money for the kids, but never to me. And she sent it. And I had been quoted 27,000 euros, which was pretty much 30,000 US dollars. And now it's nearly ready, the creator share. 1 year ago, I wasn't doing that. Now, these tools, this village is providing immediate care for these children who need it. It's providing an off-the-grid solution to persons who need it. And it's being done by a collective of heart-resonated people. And I don't know where that will go, but I know it'll go somewhere, and it's not in vain. The app is a tool to bring heart resonance to many more people, to say, hey, look what you can do with a few dollars. Look, if you buy this child a cup of coffee, you can get them into school instead of child labouring. This is a very crazy situation. These tools manifest from the light of silence. I'm planting trees I might not sit under the shade of, but I am planting those trees. And I don't think I would have been able to plant them if I'd stayed in the chaos and focusing on the problems. Because the true problem is not the constant events. If that were true, this constant human chaotic journey inside this matrix of managing our municipalities from that state of being, then 90 years ago people wouldn't be freaking out about World War II, and hundreds of years freaking out about Rome, to give these examples. Something would have given way by now. And I think now it is giving way, but we have to get everyone into heart resonance. And we have to bring that to the world. We have to raise the vibration of the planet. And focusing on problems without finding the solutions, because we as the characters of the system can't find the solution. Spirit needs to show us our original blossoming. Spirit grows your hair, spirit beats your heart, spirit grows the tree, spirit grew you and knit you together in your mother's womb. You have to find the light of silence, the stillness, to know your original blossoming. And you won't find it in the chaos of the system all the time, focusing on the problem. When we raise the vibration collectively, everything gives way. I'm also now, which I wasn't doing a year ago, building Tanzania's biggest dog rescue shelter. We are literally building that right now. All because I sat in the light of silence. Now, you can get anxious and say, but they're going to outroll mandatory vaccine and they're going to take away my rights and it's the end of the world. Well, humans were saying that at World War II. Humans were saying that in the times of Rome. What is going on here? Why are we still playing the same chaotic game? Generation after generation, why are we playing the same game? Where's the solution? If it comes to pass that humans were trying to control and govern and calculate one another in Roman times and people were opposing it, and humans are doing it now, then how does the feeling that you need to do something right now to stop them fix the problem? It doesn't, because you're pushing against the chaos with chaos. You're not pushing against it with awakened sanity to some degree. And it doesn't mean that these things are okay. It doesn't mean that there's not a problem with democracy, but it means the fear and the anxiety needs to be paused, because we can transform it and transmute it with compassion. We don't know what's driving the people who might be writing that narrative. Maybe they think humans can't evolve, and so they'll always be rapists and murderers and suffering, so it's better that they always monitor them and control them to make sure that they can use technology to thump them into this behavior, to beat them into this behavior. Maybe they feel that humans are going to wreck the planet, so they have to thump them into living a certain way of life, into smart cities where they don't go outside. Who knows? Inside the chaos of a human mind, who knows what justifications it can bring? But what I do know is that constantly staying in that chaos and focusing on the problems, it's not going to help, in my view. And I think we all need to take time to detach from it and complement. If we're going to do that, if we're going to protest, so be it, but complement it with your original blossoming and planting trees you won't sit under the shade of. Complement it with that. This will be the important additional factor. And then when we do that, I think we'll see the change we want to see in the world. Because I saw the change in the world I wanted to see when I did that, so I can only presume it's the same for everybody else. And I am still seeing that change. I am still seeing this journey. I had no idea I'd be building an app a year ago, and here I am nearly about to launch one. A social media platform, ultimately. I have no idea where Spirit's taking me, but I know the same thread is through all of it, and that thread is heart resonance, love, compassion. And that's where we need to be. That's where we need to awaken to. And it's only found in the light of silence, not in the fear of the stories of the Matrix and the chaos within there. Because unplugging from the Matrix and bringing back compassion by planting trees that cast compassionate shadows into it is likely the only way to change this. But our minds are so programmed to want results now. The result you need is to know which way to go, to be certain that this is where I must plant trees to bring the change I wish to see in the world. That's what you hunger. That's what we all hunger. And the only way to know where to plant them is to enter the light of silence. And that's why I took down my video. That's why I don't speak on the pandemic, because people should be able to see it themselves by going to the silence. And people should be able to solve it themselves by going to the silence and hearing where to plant their trees. God bless, guys.